The north wind and the sun were disputing which was the stronger, when a traveller came along wrapped in a warm cloak. They agreed that one who first succeeded in making the traveller take his cloak off should be considered stronger than the other. Then the north wind blew as hard as he could, but the more he blew the more closely did the traveller fold his cloak around him, and at last the north wind gave up the attempt. Then the sun shined out warmly, and immediately the traveller took off his cloak, and so the north wind was obliged to confess that the sun was the stronger of the two. The upcoming closure of Mount Vernon Columbarium complex will leave an aging Singaporean without a fifth of its publicly available funeral parlours. The complex, including its 8 service halls, will close in September to make way for new housing board flats and a park. But its replacement, a new complex with 12 funeral parlours occupying a fraction of the current space, will be ready only in 2024. That leaves around about 32 such halls which have no religious restrictions for wakes and other funeral rites. There are 13 along Sin Ming Drive, 10 halls in the Singapore Cascades building on Lavender Street, 6 halls in the Teochew Funeral Parlours in Ubi, 2 in Geylang Bahru, and 1 in Toa Payoh Industrial Hub. While the majority of Singaporeans bid farewell to their loved ones at one of the 10,000 housing board void decks or multipurpose pavilions, funeral directors said they have noticed more people turning to funeral parlours in recent years. Mount Vernon Sanctuary owner Ang Zi Qian, whose company operates 6 halls in Mount Vernon, said the demand for funeral parlours has been on the rise since 2010, when operators began upgrading their venues so they would not be shabby, dark and uncomfortable. Such halls are also a practical option for today's smaller families who can lock up the place to rest at night during the week, which is usually around 3 days, he added. The worry is that there may not be enough parlours to accommodate the needs of an aging society in the near term. Association of Funeral Directors President Roland Tay said he expects people to run around trying to find a resting place for their loved ones once the leases at Mount Vernon end in September. As it is, some families have experienced a space crunch. What with the Singapore Cascades Lavender Building and its 10 halls being out of commission, as it has been undergoing renovation since last October, at least one family has had to delay a loved one's funeral due to the shortage of space. But Singapore Cascade Chief Executive Goh Wee Ling said that holding a funeral at the parlour is a personal choice, and that families can also hold wakes at void decks or at open spaces near their homes. We offer night care for wakes at void decks and other non-parlour spaces for those customers who need someone to watch over the space, she said. The National Environment Agency, Urban Redevelopment Authority, and Housing Board said in a joint reply that there are currently sufficient wake spaces available to those who need them, noting that the need for essential community facilities like funeral parlours is likely to increase given the aging population. They said the government will continue to monitor the demand to ensure that there are sufficient facilities. In the meantime, some funeral parlours are preparing to ramp up capacity where they can. For example, although the Teochew Funeral Parlour currently uses 3 halls, but this can go up to 6 if needed, a staff member said. And the Singapore Cascades Lavender Building will have 12 halls by March, up from 10, to make up for its 2 Mount Vernon ones. But Mount Vernon Sanctuary Mr. Ang, who is on the lookout for space for future service halls, said there should be funeral parlours in every region in Singapore, just as there are hospitals, and that these should be built sooner rather than later. He added that he hopes the public's aversion to funeral parlours in the neighbourhood precincts can be abated over time and through education. When we recognise that death is the final stage of life, we will live life more meaningfully, he said. Okay, it's your turn. I'm writing this because I have no choice. I would like to say it is a warning to others, but I have far more selfish reasons. Even if I did warn you, I doubt you will heed it. As I did not hear the warning left for me, I must not waste time, as time is wasting me, in a way that defies the medical science I once believed I knew. My joints ache as I write, and soon I know I will be unable to continue. Yet this must be told, and so I write on. I am a doctor here at Rosewood Lodge, and I am 27 years old, though I look older. And by the time you read this, it would be scarcely possible for you to imagine me as I was yesterday. Before me, Rosewood had no resident doctor. This was my first big break, away from the hospital where I would train and qualify. At the interview, I pretty much said I would work for anything, so they snapped me up. Rosewood is a residential care for the elderly patients, some of whose care needs had started to become more advanced than those which a nursing home can ordinarily provide. The board had decided that, rather than paying out for consultants and continually dealing with emergencies, it made better economic sense to have someone like me on the payroll. It was, in short, an excellent job, relaxed but responsible, challenging but manageable, and the money was good enough for me to get my own flat, finally. The home is essentially 3 stories of self-contained flats, divided into 3 wings, A, B, and C, on each floor. Some residents are less flats and more rooms, without locks and without any real facilities of their own. The nurses and social workers tend to stay away from me, as I was still an outsider to them. And they had the run of the place, working with residents each day, whereas I would only see them if they were ill. One thing that I picked up from my colleagues, however, was the strange warning about the man in the room 17, on the end of wing B on second floor. The ridiculous thing about that particular warning was that the numbers on each wing only go up to 16. Okay,